Okay, I think we're here. I think everybody should be there. I'm just going to do a couple of technical checks. If you're there, just give me a, yep, we're good. We're good to go. If you are there, can you just drop a little hi below so that we know? Obviously, I'm going to be looking at my screen whilst I'm doing this live, but also we have Saba, who is going to be monitoring the thread, and she's just going to be popping through any little things that are really important to me, just down to my left. So if I look down there, I'm not ignoring you. I'm actually trying to find out what you're trying to say. So yep, just drop me a hi. I can see there's a couple of people here. I'm going to wait just a few moments to make sure that everybody who needs to be here, who wants to be here, is here. And then we are going to begin. Perfect. Good. I can see people. Hello, hello. Oh, look, there's people here. Well done. We got the first one in there. Perfect. Okie dokes. Good. So we're at the end of a term. It's half term. I hope you're all doing something lovely over half term, getting out and enjoying the weather. It seems to be a wonderful, wonderful week for that. I've been doing a lot of walking, a lot of getting out, seeing nature, doing some bug watching and things like that. So it's been quite fun. And yeah, so it's been quite good. Perfect. I think we're getting there. And people are jumping on. Perfect. Good, good. I think if we're all good, then I will get started. Okay. So welcome. This is one of our 11 plus question and answer sessions, which is exclusive for the 11 plus journey group. And it is answering questions that have come up in the 11 plus journey group. So some of you out there will have your questions that you have been asking in the group over the last couple of weeks, and hopefully I'll be imparting some knowledge and sharing with you some of the techniques that work for my students once we're approaching this time. So first of all, just a little bit about me. I'm one of the admins, a recent admin for 11 Plus Journey. I run a tuition agency in Oxford and I've tutored for 8 years now. But the important or interesting thing is that I myself attended Chancellor County High School down in Essex. It is a grammar school. I took the CEM 11 Plus, and from there I went to Oxford. I studied biochemistry. I did my master's in genetics, and then I returned a couple of years later to become a qualified teacher. So I really love teaching. 11 Plus is one of my favorite topics to teach, and I really like seeing the progress of our students, especially as they get to this time, because they're starting to realize, oh, I can actually do these exams. I might be able to do this. This is something that they're really getting their teeth into. Don't worry if that's not your child quite yet. We should have them into that point in only a few months. So as I said, yep, drop me a hi if you're here. And obviously, this is 11 Plus Journey. It was started by Saba when her son was going through the process. It is a place for parents to ask advice, and I know that you guys really do like to use this for advice, and that is perfect because ultimately we are here to help. So there are tutors on here, there's experts on here, and of course we've got the admins who are on here. So if throughout this Facebook Live you happen to have any questions, things that just come to your mind, you know, oh, I'd really like you to answer that, do just drop them down in the comments and we will see if we can get to them during this live. If not, then I will jump back on afterwards and I'll try and answer them myself once I've finished. So if I don't see them, sorry, I am trying to have them flagged, but if I don't see those, then I will jump on afterwards and I will make sure that I reply. We've also got Saba, who is currently, I seem to think that she's on the group, and she will be monitoring the comments as well. Perfect. Okay, Good stuff. So I think we're ready to go. So these are questions that have recently come up in the 11 Plus Journey group. And what I'm going to do is over the next, well, half hour or so, I'm going to hopefully answer, give you some suggestions, and generally try and help out. So this is our first one. Somebody said that their child was saying, well, what's the point in studying? Either I know I won't pass, or I'm, you know, it seems like I'm always going to fail. And this is something that I do see with students. And there's a couple of points that I'd like to make over that. The first is to really consider why they think that they won't pass. So has all of what they've heard around the 11 plus been that it's really hard, it's a really difficult exam, you know, no one in your year above got into this school, or this school's the most competitive school? Consider that may be the message that they've been receiving, and this also might be the message that they've been getting from teachers or from friends. So do be your child's biggest cheerleader, especially on the run up to exams. There's no point comparing. Even if you've got siblings who were in this point at this time, try not to compare them, because your child at this point will really be taking in all those emotions, and it will be worrying them. So if you're starting to hear, I know I'm not going to pass, I'm stupid, I don't know what I'm doing, I don't see why I'm doing this, do consider what they might be hearing, and do let them know that you think that they can achieve this. I've met a couple of parents who just have never said that to their child, and that needs to be something that you're saying really regularly, because you do think that they can do this, and do be their biggest cheerleader, be behind them. The second point is, and this is slightly controversial, but for me, it's not about the hours studying, it's about results. So if I have a child and they have put their all in, and they've been working and working, and they just did a 10-minute test, CGP test, and they just got full marks, I'm not going to make them do another one. I'm going to celebrate that fact. We are going to maybe do a fun dance, or we're going to take a break. We're going to maybe play a game, maybe a math game. And we're going to celebrate it, because ultimately, if that child knows, no matter how well I do, I'm just going to be doing more work, it's really not very rewarding. Ultimately, we go to work and we get rewarded for that. So we need to make sure that our child is rewarded as well. So not about the studying or hours, it is about results. So do try and consider that one as well. The third point is reward charts. I love them as an adult. Most children at this age love them. So think about stars, virtual coins, raffle tickets. They can earn their way to a prize by doing certain amounts of work, or by answering a certain number of questions, treats, whatever is needed. There will be a point when you need it, and that is the point that you will implement it. So for me, the easiest way to encourage a child to work is a nice visual poster of how well they've done, how much effort they've put in, and that's usually a star chart. And that star chart is often linked to something. So when they get 10 stars, they might be able to go get a treat, or they might be able to choose a book, or they might be able to do something which is an activity with parents. So do consider that reward. And then the last one is motivation. Obviously, we are in restricted movement times. And so instead of being able to tour schools, which we might be able to do at this time, we are somewhat restricted. So if your child is struggling, they're struggling with motivating themselves, they're struggling to really put their all in, what I ask parents to do, again, is to go and show them the school. If you can, drive past, park up, and talk about what's inside. Make it real for them, so they can see themselves walking through that gate, so that they can see what they would be doing, and emphasize the amazing facilities. So they are in primary, They will be used to maybe doing science not very often. Consider the idea of science labs. They're very exciting. So getting into those science labs, being able to do real proper experiments with Bunsen burners and with pipettes. If they're into drama, you might emphasize the drama studio, and really egg up what that school has to offer, or what those schools have to offer if you're looking for multiple. And the last thing that I suppose I wanted to make sure is that you also show your child that when you're working at things, you have to work hard too. Because I know that we're working at home at the moment, and actually this is a really interesting time because children start to see how much work you put into your job. So if they're saying, oh, this is really hard, I don't know how I'm going to do it, I think it's really loads of work, why am I doing this? So's your job. But you do it because you get the rewards out of it. You do it because it challenges you. So make sure that they know that too. Okay, so I can see a lot of comments that are coming in, and there's some interesting bits. I will try and pick up on them. As I said, I'm going to pop that just to the end so that we are there. Okay. Right, the second is, what is the point of studying? I think the tests will be cancelled. And this is something that has bounced around a little bit. If the exams are delayed or cancelled, I don't think they're going to be cancelled, but you know, the government continues to surprise us. But if they are delayed or cancelled, it will be a disappointment, but it is not going to be a waste. And I think that's something that I'm emphasizing to my students at this time. It is never a waste. So focus on the skills that they've learned, the discipline. And at this point, if somebody is flagging, another thing that I use is I often relate this to their favorite sports star. So I would say to them, you know, look at this football star. They didn't just drop into the Premier League. They worked at it. They did their skills. They practiced every single day. They made sure that they looked after themselves. They got good sleep. They got good healthy eating. They had to make sure that they played games and games and games before they were allowed to go into even a professional team. They had to go through tests. They had to do the exact same thing as you are to be able to get to this point. The other point as parents that I would like to emphasize is the idea of discussing your fears and your anxieties in front of your children. Children are like little sponges. They really do absorb all of this information. So if in front of them you are discussing the idea that maybe the exam's not going to happen, or what's going to happen if it does go ahead and they have to join all of those people in QE, for example, where it's a really, really busy exam and we've seen queues around the block before, make sure that they aren't taking that on, because that's something that's going to feed into their stress. But at the same time, if they bring these concerns up, do discuss it with them, as opposed to just brushing the idea off, because they do need to be listened to. So if you have those fears, you have those anxieties, do make sure that that they're discussed elsewhere. And that to your child, what you are saying is, we believe in you, we really think you can do this, and we're so impressed with how much work you've been putting in, because they respond really well to that positive praise. Okay. Then we got, my child is slow to complete the test. And I know that there is somebody who is watching at the moment who has asked that question. So if your child is slow to complete the test, different ways that we can help them to speed up. The first thing is, if you are a year 4 parent, this is not for you. Make sure that you have finished the whole syllabus. Make sure that your child has the confidence to be able to attempt these tests before you start to try and speed them up. Now is not the time. Make sure you do that one later. So if you are looking at this with a year 4 hat on, then consider coming back again at a later date. If you are year 5, you are starting to prepare for these, you're thinking, how am I going to help them speed up? It seems like they are taking an age. It comes with practice. So best advice I have, and what I do with my students, is I don't start with fully timed papers. Instead, I build up stamina. And a lot of us do that through things like those 10-minute tests, but also consider taking papers and splitting them into sections. So if you are doing a math paper, you might decide, okay, we're going to do the numeracy questions, or the first 10 questions, which are typically shorter. They're going to be one section. And then once they've done that, and you know how much time they're spending on that, consider some longer answer questions. Split the page up. So split that paper and really consider, well, your child is different to every other child in there. So what is their best strategy? So discuss with them and adapt. So if a child is coming to me and they're saying, I'm really struggling with shape, right? Just perimeter and area. Perimeter and area is something that they really slow down on. I notice that when I'm doing questions with them, they say that to me. I might consider, okay, well, let's consider that we have a slightly longer time to do that, so that we're aware, so that you've got that time. But also maybe knowing the different, knowing that they're faster at numeracy. So therefore they know that they are really, really good at that. And that's something that they can focus on. But it is a balance between too slow and too fast. I'll go on to the too fast in a moment. One thing that I like to do is to get a timer and put it in front of them so that they get used to it, because they are going to have a clock, or they're going to have a timer in the real thing. So let's start trying to get used to the idea. It's stressful doing it with the idea of a clock next to you. It really can bring out panic, and we don't want that to happen the first time that they sit in an exam hall, or that they sit wherever they're going to sit. And then when you're building up to full papers, so you're doing your kind of sections of paper, maybe building up to full ones, consider marking points that they should be at maybe 15 minutes, 30 minutes, just the same as you would have split those papers up. So instead, just marking those with pencil. So it's all about scaffolding that idea so that they start to be aware of when they should move on, and when they're maybe spending too long on a question, and they should maybe circle it and move on and go back to it at the end. Oh, yeah. Okay, we've got the other one now. My child rushes everything and makes silly mistakes. How do I stop it? Well, encourage checking. Now, children at this age really struggle to check. They will say that they have checked, and what they mean is they've looked. I've put an answer in that box. Perfect. It might not be the correct answer. So do consider that checking doesn't mean looking. Checking means checking. So different ways to check. You could do the sum in reverse. So if you've done 80 minus 35, let's try what the answer is plus the 35 and see if we get back. You can also look at sense checking. So quite often they make those silly mistakes, those ones that when they read back, they go, oh yeah, of course. Oh yeah, I remember that. So if they're asking for change for £15 and you're going to get an answer that's £16, something has gone wrong. So you need to encourage that sense checking, doing those sums on reverse. Add a minute to each page and use those minutes to pick 3 different questions to check. Make sure that they're properly checking it. They're not just, yep, done it, next. One thing that I like to do with my students, and it's worth saying, I've had a number of boys who typically become rushers. They really like to compete on time. I ask them that they circle it if they don't know. That's one that you're going to go back to. But they also star it if they found it hard. And then we consider it in 3 different categories. So if they are typically making silly mistakes, that means that they're not checking. So then you might consider going back to the blanks, as well as maybe going back to the circles or the stars. So consider what priority order. With some of my students, they have to go back to the blanks before they go back to the circles. because they make that many silly mistakes. They need to check all their work before they start to spend lots of time on something that they don't necessarily know. And one that I think was mentioned previously, actually, in the thread was watching for signs of burnout. So if your child is rushing everything, every paper, every worksheet, do consider that they're trying to just get it over and done with, and they might need a break. And I think whoever put that one down, that is something that I thought was really important, so I thought I'd take it through. So thank you. Okay. Woo. How can I stop my child getting distracted in the test? Practice. So for my students that tend to get distracted, I ask them to halfway through factor a brain break. So this is something that they can do at their desk. They can do it in the real thing. It is something that will refocus them and give them a little bit of movement. So I ask that they look up, look down, look to the left, look to the right, and then wiggle your toes a little bit, wiggle their fingers, wiggle their head, and then we get back on. And the reason that we go through that kind of routine is it just gives them that minute, 2 minutes to have a break, which normally would be looking out the window. Oh, there's something over there. Oh, and then they're distracted from the test. So it gives them that break, but it's short. It gets a little bit of movement going. It gets a little bit of blood pumping, and then they can go back to their work. So if you have a child who tends to get distracted, do consider halfway just putting in that brain break. So allowing them to have that time to do a little routine that they can do in their chair, and then they can get back on. And when they're practicing, there's kind of 2 schools of thought with this one. The first is remove everything, and then they won't get distracted. But sometimes some students with SEN needs especially, need to fiddle with something in order to help their mind to work. So we get a little blob of blue tack when we're working together, if I have a student who really, really needs to fiddle. And I also make sure that they're sitting in the right posture, because that also can cause distraction. So they should be sitting with both feet on the floor. They should be sitting with their back straight. They should be making sure that their blood is able to go around their body. They're not sitting on weird limbs and looking at it this way. Some students do work well with that. For students who have specific SEN needs, then we tend to try and put them in a learning position, so they know that that's the point that they're learning. But that's slightly aside. Okay. What can I do, and in what order? So this is something that comes up often when we're scouring through the 11+ group. Lots of people are, what do I do? What order should I be doing everything in? Do I need to do everything now, or do I need to wait until I do these things? So one of the things I taught my families through when we first start working is the idea of the learning pyramid. And the learning pyramid is a loose order in which you would build up to being able to do the 11+. So if you are watching this and you are in year 3, or your child is in year 3, hopefully you're not in year 3, but if you're watching this and your child is in year 3, then foundations. Year 4, foundations. We're looking at making sure that they can do all of the things that are important for forming a really great foundation, because you can't build a pyramid if you don't have the foundations for it. It will fall down. After that foundation, we start to learn the specifications. And the specs, there's lists. I can post one in the comments if needed afterwards. Then we look through the spec. So that might be, for math, is a very kind of big checklist. I like to use something like the ISEB. But again, as I said, I can post it if need be. And lots of people have slightly different specs, but they're all pretty much the same skills. So you spend the majority of that time, it's at the bottom. It's the thing that you have to spend the most time on because it's got the most space for that pyramid. Next, we start practicing those key skills. That goes along with learning the specs. So you might learn to do fractions to percentages, and then you might practice it, and then you might learn something new, time problems, and then you might practice it. As we start to go up, the amount of time that you tend to spend on it is a little bit shorter, and that goes all the way up to the real thing. So once you've got those key skills down, we're looking at short assessments. So that might be a 10-minute test, that might be something that that's like one of those cut papers that I was saying about. Then we move up, we move to practice papers, mock exams, and up to the real thing. So that is part of what we would do, but also do consider that we need to make that learning process, this revision process, fun. So for me, if I'm working with students, one of the big things that I do is we'll get flashcards. So word vocab flashcards are great. I've got a couple of packs of them in my library. I've got a couple that I do, and I will bring them out, and I will act out one, and they have to write it down, or I will do it as a hangman, and then they have to spell it. Each of this is still learning. It's not in the pyramid, but it is a part of learning. Another one that is really fun is to do Scrabble tiles. So tip all the Scrabble tiles out the box and give them a word and ask them to spell it with the Scrabble tiles, or ask them to spell it in rice, or ask them to draw it out. So consider making those things slightly more fun. Another thing that I like to do, which is related to the wow words that I post, is to use them in a sentence. So we do this competitive thing with some of my students where we try and get the word into the sentence without anybody knowing. And we've got special words that we have to use throughout the day. They might do it with their parents, they might do it with me. Do make sure that in addition to making revision fun, you've also got planned breaks, and your child knows once they reach this date, this is going to be the days that they're having off. So it's clear, it's communicated, they know that that's going to happen, and you don't change it because they have already agreed to that. That's like part of their contract when you work. And if your employer said to you, oh, you're not going to have holiday now because I've decided that actually we're going to need to do this instead, you'd be pretty disappointed too. And the other thing just to put is obviously a healthy body means a healthy mind. So if your child is struggling to sleep, if they are having a poor diet, if they're not taking on enough water, do be aware of those things because they will affect performance. Okay. How much work is enough? Is my child ready? So this is how long is a piece of string? There's always more that you can do. Other people will always be doing more, or they'll be telling you that they do less, or they'll be telling you that they're doing nothing and their child just happens to be getting 80%. No one is important except your child. And this goes back to the whole being the biggest cheerleader for your child, because you need to be their champion. So it doesn't matter what other people are doing, to an extent. Obviously, there are lots of parents out here where parents will give you advice. They might tell you what they're doing, but remember that your child is your own. Same thing for tutors. Tutors will say, well, this works really well, or this works really well, but you know your child better than anyone, including their tutor. So if you have been told by your tutor that you need to do 5 mock exams, but you think that's not going to work, then it's your child. So there is advice that you can ask of tutors, and I say this as a tutor, but ultimately, it's a discussion. I say it's a 3-way conversation. There's there's your child, and there's a tutor. If you're going to use a tutor, then they're there as advice. They're not there as dictators. I don't think any tutors on the 11+ journey would say that they want to dictate what parents should do. The other bits is to check whether that your child has covered everything. Use past papers, and if you're going to be using these past papers, consider And I know some parents are really not a big fan of this, but consider taking those papers alongside your child. The reason that I say this, and I'm ready to I'm ready to see parents' comments possibly in the chat, but the first thing is that you can see alternative methods. So if you've used a method and your child's used a different one, it might be that one of those is quicker. You won't know that unless you've taken it. Just going through with a mark scheme can tell you whether it's right, but it can't necessarily tell you whether they've done it the quickest way or the most effective way. So do consider that part. The next one is because it helps them to understand those mistakes. So once you see that your child has made a mistake, you can go back and you can check through the question. You can see, was it a reading mistake? Did they not understand the question? Is it a numeracy mistake? Is it that they've copied the question down wrong or the answer down wrong? There's lots of points that they could have made that mistake, and it might not be because they don't understand how to do it. It might be because it's a silly mistake. It might be because it's a reading thing. So that would be the two reasons that I would recommend. And I can see Sheena saying nope. But that is something that I think is useful. I mean, I would also maybe look at the answers, but do consider going through them in your head, because not to show you up in front of your child, it is purely so that you can understand how they're doing it. And I know that there's lots of people who wouldn't want to do it, and that's fine. It's just a suggestion. It typically is what I do alongside my students. And then the last thing is zoom out. Zoom out, zoom out, zoom out. I see, and I have people email me who are really, really panicking. You know, they say, oh, my child's only doing 2 hours and they should be doing 3 or 4, or I don't know how long that they should be spending in summer. Should they be doing this every day? Should they be doing it, you know, having Friday off? But zoom out. Does that 1 hour mean anything in the grand scheme? If you've been preparing for this for a while, the chances are it doesn't. And weigh up pressure versus stress. So some children work really well under pressure. I work well under pressure because it's just the type of person that I am. Pressure for me means that it's healthy. Stress is when it gets too much. So consider, when you are considering how much work is enough, is it really that important in the grand scheme? Or, you know, is it adding more stress? Is it encouraging, and is it helping your child to be the best that they can? Or is it leading to resentment? Is it leading to arguments? And actually, does that 1 hour, is it the most important thing? Okay. And then the last one that I've got that's on this PowerPoint is, what do I do in the last month? And I think we might pick up on this again over the next couple of months, but I just wanted to put this in here because I know that somebody specifically asked, what do I do? Confidence. Boost that confidence. Your child is only going to believe that they can do this if you tell them they can do this, and if you show them they can do this. So if you say to them, we're going to do all these papers in this last month and each one is really hard, they're not going to go in with that positive I can do it mindset. If you show them how far they've come, if you show them their amazing papers and how they've really managed to work and some of their best pieces of work, and I like to keep some of their best pieces of work so that I can show them at the end, then they're going to believe that they can do it, because they're going to say, okay, you know, this is me, this is what I can do. Then mentally prepare them. So talk them through what it's going to be like, and especially important this year because we don't know what it's going to be like. So when we find out those details, mentally prepare them. So talk them through it. You're going to walk into this example. This is what it's going to be like. You're then going to go into these classrooms, or you're going to be there with this many people. I'm going to be just outside. A lot of children get a bit worried about where their parents are going to be during this time. I'm just going to be outside. I'm not going to be far away. make sure that they know what's going to happen. So mentally prepare them. Mindfulness. So lots of the children I work with, and I think all children, when it comes, and all people actually, when it comes to exams, we get a little bit stressed, even if we're the best exam takers. So knowing techniques to be able to calm yourself down is a great skill, not just for the 11 plus, but beyond. So knowing some breathing exercises. Whoops, there we are. Sorry about that. There we are. So using some breathing exercises, knowing some mindfulness techniques, being able to focus themselves, not pay attention to anyone else around the room, and just do their best. And you tell them over and over again that their best is all they can do, that you really believe in them, that they have performed so well over the last months, that they have prepared amazingly, and that you really believe in them. And ask them that they think about that they focus just on themselves and on doing their best. I also run through what do I do if questions. A lot of children have them, and they include things like, what do I do if there's a fire alarm? What do I do if I run out of water? What do I do if I need the toilet? And you should be able to answer those. So talk through with your child what's going to happen, so that they know, okay, if there's a fire alarm, I am happy because I have thought about it in my mind. So what I say to my students is, your mind can think about it beforehand, and it means the rest of you is prepared. If you thought about it, you're great, you're prepared, you've already solved that problem in your mind. So do go through those what ifs. And then really, because we're increasing that confidence in the last month, really have fun. So read for fun, show them that you enjoy reading, review highlighted areas where they have shown great improvement in papers, as well as maybe a couple of just little bits that they might need a bit of reminders on. So it might be shapes, it might be fractions to decimals, it might be, something simple that is worth reviewing. And do make it fun. So the idea is, in that last month, it's all about confidence, it's all about belief, and it's about reviewing things, not putting in loads and loads of last minute prep, but making sure that they have that belief, they know what's going to happen afterwards. That's also always a little bit of a concern. What are we going to do afterwards? Maybe you might go out as family for a meal, or you might, barbecue or something. Make sure that they know, so that they are aware of that, and so that it's not as a change. Make sure that they know, what the format's going to be. All about confidence. Okie dokes. So what I'm going to do is I can see the 71 comments. I'm going to have a quick flick through and see if there's anything that's really urgent. I'm hoping that Saba might be able to drop me a couple of messages. Hello, to tell me if there's anything that is really urgent that we can deal with. I know that we are coming up to almost 7 o'clock, and so I don't want to take up masses of your time, but I do want to see if there is anybody out there who is desperate. I know that we've had Sheena and we've had Lucy, perfect, who've been answering questions as well, so that is brill. So yeah, I'm just going to have a quick flick through. Let's have a nose. All right, so let's have a look. If you do have anything urgent, please do pop that down whilst I'm having a look through these. Okay. Okay. So, yep, do keep posting those if they are there. Oh, okay. There's a lot of people.
There we are. So Saba seems to be on it, and it's hopefully going to pass me through some of your questions and your queries. Okay. So I know that somebody has asked about minimum marks, and I think actually it's been answered, but just as a comment, I can see your comment. So there are different minimum marks for each target school. So it would be something to look at your target school and to find out the approximate scores that they would have taken previous years, because that will give you a good idea. That doesn't necessarily map to practice papers because the scorings are somewhat tricky. And so what I would be looking for is percentage increase. So consider where your child is starting and look to see a percentage increase. And I know that I've said previously in a different thread somewhere that I work with chilies on my exam papers. So I start my kids off at, 1 or 2 chilies. Someone said it's like Nando's. I don't really eat at Nando's, so I don't know. But, and then they move up to 3 chilies, they move up to 4 chilies. And if they're doing scholarships, they'll do a 5 chili test. And each time they have to, for me, they have to get a certain percentage in that test to move up to the next level. So that's the way that I deal with it, just to show that there is definite progress. Okay, other bits that we've got: how to deal with a sibling comparison. Don't compare them. They are different people. They have different strengths, they have different weaknesses, and if they're comparing amongst themselves, then what I would do is I would highlight those different strengths. So if you do have 2 siblings, maybe you've got twins who are both taking the same exam, or you've got one who's already passed or and one who's taking it, I would, as much as possible, highlight their different skills. So I recently had a student whose older brother was in QE and he was taking the test, and he kept on comparing himself to his sibling, and he kept on saying, my brother did really, really well at QE, and I'm really worried that I'm not going to do it, and that actually he said that dad's going to be disappointed, which was really, really sad to hear. And so what we did is we worked a lot with family to ensure that his skills and his talents were really recognized, and he was really ace at math, and he just hadn't he'd been comparing himself to his sibling, and really what you want to do is just highlight the amazingness of each individual as opposed to comparing, because comparison never does anything to anyone's confidence. So really, really highlight and again boost their confidence, and by telling them the things that they are great at. We've got how to realize the potential of a child who doesn't want to work. Okay. What are they interested in? Hook that interest. So are they interested because they want to become a great, I don't know, public speaker? They want to become a politician. Maybe not in this climate, but if they do, push that bit of the school. Do they want to do loads of science? Push that bit of the school. Do they want to compete in football? Well, then show them the football team of the school. Use anything that you can to hook and to harness onto. If they're a child that's money orientated, then maybe consider a reward that's to do with that, or highlight to them the kind of earning opportunities, what they will be able to get out of the school. So they might be able to go on these amazing trips, which might be what they want to spend that money on anyway. So try and find any hook you can. If they enjoy often I find this about reading, actually. So if a child enjoys doesn't necessarily enjoy reading, but does enjoy football or does enjoy some kind of sport, then consider autobiographies and consider that kind of interest and bring that into some of the comprehension. So it's about trying to find that hook and trying to really build on it. Again, in math, money problems are great, and time problems and trains, and maybe bringing in some of those interests. We've got how to get motivation to do additional year 4 work, as I've got long time until the exam and the child has no real feel for the school. Okay, so if you are a year 4 parent who is watching this and you're thinking, okay, we're approaching the end of year 4, we're going to start building up to that year 5, we know that this is the year, and you're thinking, well, I usually would have been taking them round the school, I would have been showing them these facilities. Do sit down and do spend a long time with them, going through the website, looking through YouTube videos, talking if you can. Find somebody who goes to that school who might, or somebody whose child goes to that school who might be able to talk to your child about what they've managed to do in year 7, or consider the extracurriculars that maybe that school has and that they would want to do. So again, it's about motivating and about finding that. If you are struggling to find the time, which I think quite a lot of people are currently doing, so it says here, if your child's school gives homework daily, you struggle to find the time, and how do we fit it all in? Obviously, at this point, schools are giving lots and lots of work, and some schools are giving all work and then it has to come in, and some schools are doing live lessons, and some students are doing virtual schools, and there's all sorts of things that are happening. If you are finding it's too much and you are struggling to fit it in, try carving out just a small portion. I say little and often, as little and often as possible. So that might be 15 minutes that you do after breakfast, which is key vocab. That might be that you do that every other day. I've got a calendar that I use with one of my students. They spend 10 minutes a day. They run through a whole load of exercises that I set them. So they might be working on synonyms and antonyms one day, and then they might be doing spellings, and then they might be doing some verbal reasoning, the end of sentence type questions, and then they might be doing some non-verbal reasoning, and then they might be doing some maths, and 10 minutes a day adds up. By the time you get to Friday, you've done 50 minutes. So little and often, and try and build in a nice variety and a variety of ways to do it as well. So they're not always sitting down and having to do 10, 20 questions. They might play hit the button for math, or they might play free write for spellings or synonyms. So try and vary it. As I said before, I use often the flashcard word challenge. So where they've got those 3 wow words for the day, for the week, sorry, and they try and get them into different sentences without people knowing, so that they naturally fall into sentences. So do try and gamify it as well if you feel like there's a lot of homework and you're struggling to get on top of everything, because that's something that you might want to make it feel less like work. Okay. Have we got any other sub-out, or am I almost? Oh, I'm almost at time. Okay. I'm just gonna have a quick look through. Let's pop this one back as well. There we are. So that's back there. How much time should we be starting each week, roughly, in year 4? What do we build towards for year 5? Okay. Foundations in year 4 need to be strong. You are coming to the end of the year, so you really need to make sure that they're there. So when I say foundations in math, I mean those 4 operations, knowing negative numbers. There is, as I said before, there's a checklist, which I can pop down, which typically I work through, but it's also available on lots of tutors have it, lots of websites have it. I would look through those and consider, have they covered time? Have they covered shape, space, and measure? Do they know how to read a bar chart? Do they understand what putting decimals in order? So make sure that they've got all those key foundations, and you are looking to start moving towards the spec, and that's gap filling. So most of it they would have done at school, but there'll be bits they haven't. And the summer is an ideal time to start to gap fill. We're not looking at this point, if you're in year 4, at loads and loads and loads and loads of work, because they will be really tired by the time they start in September. So ease them in. So you know what your schedule is like. Unfortunately, I don't. But if you know what your schedule is like, you might choose to put in 2 hours a week. And that might just be 1 hour of English, 1 hour of math. Or you might say, well, my child needs a lot more help on that verbal, non-verbal. They've not necessarily done it before. Then start to consider the verbal, non-verbal. You might do that with a tutor. You might not do that with a tutor. And start going through the different types of question, introducing them. That's not something that's often taught in schools. So make sure that that it is covered, that they know all those different types of questions. So really start building, but you are at the bottom of that hill, so you don't want to be working like you're at the top of that hill, because otherwise they're going to tire out. They're going to really tire out, and especially with lockdown and with this situation, they're tiring out a lot quicker. So don't overload. As I said throughout this presentation, it's all about confidence, and we really do believe, I know that Saba and I especially do believe that that confidence is one of those key things, that by supporting your child and believing in them and working with them, it's the best way to help them achieve. Okay. So I think we're done for this hour. It's been amazing to have you here. Thanks so much for tuning in, and thank you for the guys who've been giving some support back on the chat. That is wonderful. I am going to head off, but obviously if you have any other questions, pop them down, and I will make sure that either myself or one of the team or anyone will get back to you, because ultimately at 11 Plus Journey we are here to help, and we want you to help you and your child to achieve the best. Okay, bye bye.